screech. The midnight black Rolls-Royce Phantom glided into my driveway with the grace of a panther, its V12 engine purring like a contented beast. The late afternoon sun hit the car's polished chrome, sending beams of light dancing across the quiet cul-de-sac. This wasn't just a car. It was a statement, a dream I'd clawed my way to after years of sleepless nights and relentless hustle. I'd barely stepped out, the scent of new leather still clinging to my clothes, when I felt the neighborhood's pulse shift. Curtains fluttered, garage doors creaked open, and one set of eyes, sharp as a hawk's, locked onto me from across the street. Meet Karen, the HOA's self-crowned dictator, and my unwitting ticket to the wildest suburban showdown I'd ever face. I'm Jake, a 32-year-old tech entrepreneur who hit the jackpot with a startup that revolutionized online payment systems. After cashing out, I traded my cramped city apartment for a sprawling 5-bedroom in Willow Creek, a gated community where every lawn was clipped to perfection and every mailbox screamed status. The Rolls-Royce? That was my victory lap, a $500,000 masterpiece of engineering, handcrafted in Goodwood, England, with a Spirit of Ecstasy hood ornament that practically winked at passers-by. I'd spent months dreaming of this moment, parking my prize in my own driveway, maybe giving it a quick polish while sipping a cold drink. But Willow Creek had other plans, and they came in the form of a 50-something woman in yoga pants and a permanent scowl. I hopped out, waxing cloth in hand, ready to give the Phantom a final shine. That's when Karen struck. Her flip-flops slapped, the pavement like gunfire as she marched across the street, her bob haircut bouncing with every furious step. "Excuse me?" she bellowed, her voice slicing through the neighborhood's hum of sprinklers and distant lawnmowers. I turned, one eyebrow raised, and met her glare. She stood there, hands on hips, her HOA badge clipped to her shirt like a sheriff's star. "That thing doesn't belong here," she spat, pointing at my car like it was a junkyard clunker. I leaned against the rolls, wiping a non-existent smudge off the hood. "You mean my car?" I asked, keeping my tone light but firm. Karen's face twitched, her eyes darting between me and the Phantom. I could almost see the gears grinding in her head, envy, outrage, and a desperate need to control clashing, like a 3-car pileup. It's ostentatious," she stammered, as if she'd just Googled fancy word for too nice. "This is a respectable neighborhood, not some rap video set." I bit back a laugh. Respectable. This was a place where people spent thousands on imported koi fish for their backyard ponds. But Karen wasn't done. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a venomous hiss. "I don't know who you think you are, young man, but we have rules here. That car is an eyesore, and it's going to tank our property values." Property values? In a neighborhood where the cheapest house went? For $1.2 million, I couldn't help it. I chuckled. Big mistake. Karen's eyes narrowed to slits, and I swear I saw her nostrils flare like a bull ready to charge. "Karen," I said, reading her name off the badge. "It's parked in my driveway. I own this house. I'm not breaking any laws." I thought, logic might calm her down. Spoiler, it didn't. Her face turned a shade of red that matched her tacky flamingo lawn ornaments, and she started pacing, muttering about community standards and newcomers with no respect. By now, neighbors were rubbernecking. A guy washing his BMW paused, sponge dripping. A woman walking her poodle slowed to a crawl, pretending not to stare. The air crackled with the kind of tension you feel before a storm hits. Then Karen pulled out the big guns, her HOA handbook, a dog-eared binder she clutched like a holy relic. "Section 4, Article 12, she declared, flipping to a page marked with neon sticky notes. "Vehicles must be approved by the board. You can't just roll in here with that and expect us to accept it." She jabbed a finger at the I, Rolls, her voice hitting a pitch that could shatter glass. I glanced at the handbook, then back at her. "Karen," I said, "it's a car, not a monster truck. I'm pretty sure the HOA doesn't get to veto my taste in vehicles." That was the moment I saw it, the glint in her eyes, the kind of manic glee that comes from wielding power over something she couldn't control. She straightened up, her flip-flops squeaking as she planted her feet. "You'll regret this," she said, her voice low and icy. "I'm calling the authorities." I thought she was bluffing, maybe threatening to tattle to the HOA board. But then she whipped out her phone, dialed 911 and started fake crying before the call even connected. "Help!" she wailed, loud enough for the whole block to hear. "There's a suspicious vehicle in our neighborhood, and I don't feel safe." I stood there, waxing cloth dangling, as Karen transformed into a one-woman soap opera. The Rolls-Royce, my pride and joy, had just sparked a war, and this was only the beginning. Karen stood in my driveway, her HOA handbook raised like a holy grail, her finger jabbing at the pages as if they held the secrets to universal order. "Section 4, Article 12, she proclaimed, her voice hitting a pitch that could wake hibernating. Bears. "Vehicles must be approved by the Willow Creek Homeowners Association Board, and that," she thrust a manicured nail toward my Rolls-Royce, its chrome grille gleaming innocently, "is a blatant violation of our community standards." I leaned against the Phantom's hood, arms crossed, trying not to laugh. Community standards. This was a neighborhood where people spent more on lawn sculptures than most spend on cars. My Rolls was no eyesore. It was a masterpiece. "Karen," I said, keeping my tone even, "it's parked in my driveway. I own this house. I'm pretty sure your rulebook doesn't cover what I drive." Her face flushed a shade of red that rivaled her tacky flamingo lawn ornaments, which, by the way, were the real crime against aesthetics. She flipped through her handbook, pages crinkling under her furious grip, muttering about undesirable elements and property value degradation. I caught a neighbor, a guy hosing down his BMW, pausing to watch, his jaw practically on the pavement. A woman with a poodle slowed her walk, her phone subtly angled to record the showdown. The cul-de-sac was turning into a live reality show, and Karen was the star villain. "You don't understand," she snapped, stepping closer, her flip-flops squeaking like a warning signal. "This is Willow Creek. We have a reputation to uphold. That monstrosity is too flashy, too loud, too everything." I raised an eyebrow. Loud. The Rolls-Royce Phantom was whisper quiet, its engine a soft purr compared to the Leaf, blowers whining every morning. "Karen, it's a car, not a neon billboard," I said, wiping a non-existent smudge off the hood. "If anything's lowering property values, it's your yelling." Big mistake. Her eyes widened, and for a second, I thought she might combust. "How dare you?" she hissed, clutching her handbook so tightly I expected it to burst into flames. She started pacing, her voice rising to a fever pitch. "This is about community. Harmony. We have rules for a reason. People like you come in here, thinking you can do whatever you want. But we have standards." She was practically vibrating now, her words tumbling out in a tirade about upstarts and disrespect. I glanced around. More neighbors were emerging, drawn by the spectacle. A teen on a skateboard stopped, popping an earbud out to listen. A woman watering her roses forgot her hose, flooding her flower bed. Then Karen went nuclear. "I'm the HOA president," she declared, as if it came with a crown and scepter. "I've lived here for 15 years, and I've seen people like you try to ruin our neighborhood. That car is a symbol of excess, and it's not welcome here." I couldn't help it, I chuckled. "Excess? Karen, your mailbox is shaped like a lighthouse. Let's talk symbols." The crowd murmured, a few stifling laughs. Karen's face went from red to purple, and I swear I saw steam. She flipped open her handbook again, reciting a litany of supposed violations. Non-approved vehicle aesthetics. Unauthorized driveway use, potential zoning infractions. I'm no lawyer, but I was pretty sure she was making half of this up. I tried reasoning one last time. "Look, Karen, I'm not breaking any laws. If the HOA has a problem, they can send me a letter. Let's keep this civil." But civility wasn't in Karen's vocabulary. She snapped her handbook shut, her eyes glinting with a mix of fury and triumph. "Oh, you'll hear from the board," she said, her voice low and menacing. "And if that doesn't work, I'll make sure the authorities handle it." I thought she meant a strongly worded email or maybe a fine. Nope. She pulled out her phone, dialed 911, and started fake crying before the call even connected. "Help!" she wailed, loud enough to echo off the McMansions. "There's a suspicious vehicle in our neighborhood, and I don't feel safe." I stood there, waxing cloth dangling, as Karen transformed into a one-woman melodrama. She gestured wildly at the rolls, claiming it was probably stolen and a threat to the community. Neighbors were now openly filming, their phones capturing every second of her Oscar-worthy performance. The Rolls-Royce, my pride and joy, had just ignited a suburban war, and Karen was loading her cannons with every rule in her handbook. I knew then that this wasn't just about a car. It was about control, and Karen wasn't going to let go without a fight. Karen's defeat at the HOA meeting was just the appetizer. She didn't slink away quietly. No, she doubled down with a move so desperate it was almost pathetic. A week later, I found a flyer in my mailbox. Petition to ban luxury vehicles. In Willow Creek. Karen's name was plastered at the bottom, along with a grainy photo of my Rolls-Royce, captioned, "Say no to excess." The petition claimed ostentatious vehicles were eroding our community's values and attracting unwanted attention. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. Unwanted attention? The only attention my Rolls attracted was from car enthusiasts and kids begging for a peek inside. I showed the flyer to my neighbor Tom, the retiree who'd called out Karen's flamingo ornaments at the meeting. "She's lost it," he said, shaking his head. "This is her Waterloo." Tom wasn't wrong. The petition became Karen's undoing, a self-inflicted wound that exposed her petty vendetta to the entire neighborhood. Residents started swapping stories on the Willow Creek Facebook group, and the floodgates opened. Lisa, the young mom, posted about Karen's $200 fine for her son's basketball hoop. Another neighbor shared how Karen had reported his unapproved holiday lights to the city. Even the poodle lady chimed in, revealing Karen's attempt to ban her dog's excessive barking. The poodle yapped maybe twice a day. The group lit up with memes of my Rolls captioned, "Karen's Kryptonite." By the next HOA election, the neighborhood was ready for revolution. Karen ran for re-election as president, but her campaign, flyers stuffed with buzzwords like tradition and harmony, fell flat. Tom nominated Greg, the nervous board president, who promised to end the rulebook reign of terror. In a landslide, Karen was ousted, her 15-year grip on Willow Creek shattered. Greg's first act? Scrapping Karen's vehicle petition and revising the bylaws to limit HOA overreach. The neighborhood exhaled, and I felt like I'd won the Super Bowl. To celebrate, I threw a block party, turning my driveway into a mini car show. The Rolls-Royce was the star, its doors opened so kids could gawk at the starry headliner and buttery leather seats. Neighbors brought burgers, beers, and stories of Karen's antics. Lisa's son dribbled his basketball, free from fines. Tom's golden retriever romped with the poodle, barking to its heart's content. Even the guy with the BMW who'd watched Karen's meltdown from his lawn apologized for not speaking up sooner. "We let her run wild too long," he said, clinking his bottle against mine. "Your car woke us up." I grinned, happy to help. Kids took selfies with the Rolls, their parents snapping pics as the spirit of ecstasy glinted in the sunset. I overheard one teen whisper, "This car's worth more than Karen's house," and stifled a laugh. The party stretched into the night, music blaring, laughter echoing. Karen predictably didn't show, but her porch light stayed on, her silhouette visible behind the curtains. Rumor had it she was listing her house, claiming, "The neighborhood's gone downhill." Tom winked at me. "Guess your Rolls lowered. Her property value after all." Weeks later, a sold sign appeared on Karen's lawn, and her flamingo ornaments vanished, probably to terrorize another suburb. She still glares when I drive by. But her power's gone. Her handbook empire. Reduced to a cautionary tale. Willow Creek feels different now. Friendlier, less like a prison with perfect grass. I learned a lesson. Know your rights, stay calm, and let a good car and a bad neighbor do the talking. The Rolls-Royce Phantom? It's more than a status symbol. It's the spark that dethroned an HOA tyrant and brought us together. Moral of the story: don't mess with a man and his Phantom. If you're facing an HOA Karen, arm yourself with facts, rally your neighbors, and wait for karma to roll in. Mine did, and it's parked right in my driveway, shining brighter than E. The morning after Karen's 911 fiasco, my inbox pinged with an email that could have been written in Comic Sans for all its absurdity. Subject line: immediate action required, vehicle violation. Signed by Karen, naturally, in her official capacity as Willow Creek HOA president. It demanded I remove my unapproved vehicle within 48 hours or face a $500 fine per day. Attached were blurry photos of my Rolls-Royce, clearly snapped from her window like she was on a covert mission. One shot caught the Spirit of Ecstasy hood ornament at an angle that made it look like it was mocking her. I laughed, but the audacity of it all lit a fire in me. Karen wasn't just coming for my car, she was coming for my peace. I called my lawyer friend, Sarah, who specialized in real estate disputes. "Jake," she said, chuckling over the phone, "HOAs can't regulate what you park in your own driveway unless it's explicitly in the bylaws. Send me their rule book." I did, and after a quick review, she confirmed what I suspected. Karen was overreaching. The bylaws mentioned vehicles in disrepair or commercial trucks, not too fancy cars. Armed with this, I decided to take the fight to her turf, the next HOA board meeting, scheduled for that Friday at the community clubhouse. I pulled up to the clubhouse in the Rolls-Royce, parking it front and center where its gleaming chrome could reflect Karen's scowl. Neighbors whispered as I walked in, carrying a printed copy of the HOA bylaws and a calm confidence. The meeting room smelled of stale coffee and self-righteousness, with Karen at the head of a long table, her handbook open like a general's battle plan. About 20 residents sat in folding chairs, some curious, others clearly Team Karen. She started the meeting with a smug, "Let's address the issue of non-compliant vehicles." Her eyes locked on me. I stood up, ignoring her attempt to cut me off. "Before we waste everyone's time," I said, holding up the bylaws, "let's clarify something. Section 4, Article 12, which Karen loves quoting, says nothing about vehicle aesthetics. It covers abandoned cars, RVs, and boats. My Rolls-Royce is none of those. It's legally registered, parked on my property, and fully compliant." Karen's face twitched, her pen tapping furiously. "That's not the point," she snapped. "It's about community image. That car is ostentatious. The room stirred. A retiree named Tom, who'd been quiet, raised his hand. "Karen, if we're talking image, what about your flamingo lawn ornaments? Those are bold." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Karen's loyalists gasped, but others nodded. Emboldened, a young mom named Lisa chimed in. "Yeah, and you? Find me $200 for my kid's basketball hoop. Jake's car isn't hurting anyone." The tide was turning and Karen sensed it. She tried to pivot, claiming my Rolls was disrupting harmony, but I was ready. "Harmony?" I said, sliding a printout of local zoning laws across the table. I checked with the city. HOAs can't enforce rules that contradict property rights. My car stays. Sarah had coached me on this. Karen's handbook didn't trump actual law. The board president, a nervous guy named Greg, looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. Karen, however, went full volcano. "This is outrageous," she shouted, slamming her handbook down. "You're new here, Jake, and you're already causing chaos." That's when the room erupted. Neighbors, fed up with Karen's reign of terror, started spilling her dirt. One guy mentioned her fining him for unapproved mailbox paint. Another complained about her harassing a teen over a skateboard ramp. Tom, the retiree, dropped the bombshell. She tried to ban my dog's breed last year, claiming it was aggressive. It's a golden retriever. The crowd was buzzing now, and Greg, sensing mutiny, called for a vote. To Karen's horror, the board tabled her complaint, effectively killing her fine. I walked out, fist-bumping Tom, as Karen glared daggers. The Rolls-Royce had won this round, but I knew she'd be back. Karen's 911 call was a performance that would have made Broadway jealous. "Help! There's a suspicious vehicle in our neighborhood," she wailed into her phone, her voice trembling with crocodile tears. "I don't feel safe. It's probably stolen." I stood there, waxing cloth limp in my hand, watching her transform my Rolls-Royce Phantom, a car that cost more than her annual HOA budget, into a public menace. She paced my driveway, gesturing wildly at the car's gleaming chrome and custom rims, as if it were a getaway vehicle from a bank heist. "It's a threat to our community," she added, her voice cracking for dramatic effect. Neighbors were now fully invested, their phones out, filming like they were at a reality TV shoot. A teen on a skateboard leaned against a mailbox, smirking. A woman with a yapping poodle clutched her pearls, whispering to her friend. I tried to interject. "Karen, it's my car. I have the paperwork." But she was too deep in her Oscar-worthy act, clutching her chest like she was auditioning for a soap opera death scene. "This man is intimidating me," she told the dispatcher, pointing at me like I was a mob boss.